Welcome back. Everyone watching this video knows how great the Arkham games are. The lore, the characters, the gameplay, all things which blend together to create what some people would consider the definitive universe of the Dark Knight. Everyone knows what each game does best and what it does worst. But what does each game do well that flies under the radar? Well, that's what we're here to discuss today. To see what each mainline Batman Arkham game's most underrated feature is, whether it be gameplay, story or character related. Each Arkham game excels at something that doesn't quite get its credit, so let's talk about that. But very quickly before we get into this video, I want to shout out Small Broski for being the first channel member. Huge thanks to you, and if you want your own membership to access exclusive channel badges, emojis, raw recording footage with my commentary over the top, think a podcast while I record for these videos. This is a different greenhouse! What the hell?
In the middle of the room. The middle. In clear view.
I've never seen these maps before. This is so cool. This video is the greatest piece of content I've ever made. Purely because I've discovered there's like 15 other maps that I've just never seen. This is mint. Early access to new videos and members only polls, so you can have a direct impact on the content on this channel. Go and check that out if that's something you're interested in. If not, stick around anyway. Like, subscribe, we're on the road to 1,000 subs, so if you like Arkham content, subscribe and we might hit that sooner rather than later. And join me as we take a look at the most underrated features in the Arkham games. Arkham Asylum is an interesting case for this video, because as far as content goes, it's the lightest of the mainline Arkham games, it being the first of the series. But what it lacks in features, it makes up for in its tone and atmosphere. But what Arkham Asylum does well, which no one seems to mention, is, of all things, its UI and menus. That might sound like quite a boring feature, but it's actually far from it. Everything in Asylum is intertwined. The tone gels with the atmosphere, the character designs gel with its tone, nothing feels out of place, and this extends to its menus. The messy sort of feel of the menus match the feel of the game itself, and never really feel out of place. The scrolled out white outlines of the boxes, the font, the sound design, it all mixes together to create this immersive feel which I don't think, much like the atmosphere, got captured in preceding games. Even the pause menu feels right. That might sound stupid, but when you pause, you don't feel ripped out of the game. It dims the screen and puts this gritty filter over it, and brings a menu up on the side which fits the theming of the rest of the game. This might sound dull, but it means that when you press resume, it feels more like stepping back into the Asylum's walls after a momentary pause, rather than you resuming a light-hearted Batman game. The sound design of the menu is also great. It sets this kind of haunting feel, the screech of the bats as you select a new upgrade, or do other seemingly dull things in the menus, make sure you feel like you've never really left the Asylum. As the in-game walls metaphorically and literally close in on Batman as the night goes on, the menus should feel like a brief escape, but they're far from it, down to the sound. It all feels like no matter how hard you try, the Asylum is there, in the background, trying to bring you back. And the choice to keep the menus black is great. There's no metaphor or smart insight here, it just looks cool. Arkham Asylum's menus are perfect, and in my opinion, it never got better than this. And while we're at it, this point kind of extends to the character bios. The character bios are the best in the series here, and although with later entries they'd be rendered non-canon, they're a great slice of information on each of these characters overall, and the art style is great. So great, in fact, I have a large portion of my right arm tattooed in this style, because these character bio images, in the words of Triple H, are just that damn good. A strong honourable mention that might seem dull in today's gaming landscape, but was pretty big back then, that's just the overall movement. Not the combat, but like the movement of the game. The fluidity of the animations and the ease of execution are great, and make the game a joy to go back and pick up all these years later. This is probably the least underrated of the features in this video, but it feels like a lot of compliments get thrown at the free-flow combat, and rightfully so, but never usually at the overall fluidity of movement and the huge amount of animations that were put into this game to make every moment just feel like cutting butter with a hot knife.
Shut it down. By the end of tonight, I will be a hero, just like you, Batman.
Batman Arkham City is very hard to do for this, because it really is the creme de la creme of superhero games, never mind Batman games, so every part about it has been spoken about to length. But something I've heard less than other things in this game is the huge variety of characters that pop up. When we look back at Arkham Asylum, we have Joker, Harley, Bane, Scarecrow, Riddler, albeit just through voice lines, Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Quincy Sharp, Cash, Bowles, Gordon, and a few others I'm sure I'm missing. But in just one game's difference, we see added on to those characters, and obviously Batman, Catwoman, Azrael, Robin, Victor Zsasz, Ra's and Talia al Ghul, and by extension the entire League of Assassins, Mr. Freeze, Black Mask, Nightwing, Penguin, Clayface, Solomon Grundy, Vicky Vale, Jack Ryder, Hush, Deadshot, Mad Hatter, and Two-Face, on top of the previously mentioned characters. And that's just the notable pre-established characters. There's maybe 10 or 15 original Arkhamverse characters that show up in this game. Arkham City really delved into Batman's iconic rogues gallery to fill out the walled-off super prison, and it shows the ambition Rocksteady felt after Asylum. While Asylum had a lot of nods and hints to the wider world of the Arkhamverse, City really made it feel like a lived-in world. The feeling of being trapped with all of Batman's worst villains shines through, and it's great, and it's something Arkham City did really well. We went from dealing with a handful of supervillains to dealing with basically all of them in one game, and it's something no one ever seems to mention. This was something I was hesitant to mention because it felt like I was really digging to find something to talk about here, because Arkham City is probably the most talked about and adored game in the series, but I feel like this is a huge part of the game. Batman's villains have always been the main focus of his best stories. It's rare Batman himself is the main focus of modern Batman media, and often the villains steal the limelight. So it's actually nice to see Arkham City expand and utilise all of these iconic and beloved characters, which serve as both introductions to these characters for casual fans and amazing inclusions for the hardcore fans. Take myself for example. I first played Batman Arkham City when I was 7 or 8 in either 2011 or 2012, I can't remember exactly, but I had no idea who Hush was or Solomon Grundy, or even Deadshot, or any of the sort of B to C list villains this game presented as big deals. And it taught me who these characters were, what they did, and due to the game's iconic character designs, gave me a really good idea of what they looked like. This type of inclusion for these characters is great, and is one of the reasons why Arkham City remains most people's favourite in the series. Its ambition coming off the back of Asylum and great inclusion of these characters was a masterstroke in evolving the Arkham franchise, even setting up characters like Hush and Azrael to be major threats. And although future games wouldn't deliver on the promises made by City's character arcs, City deserves huge praise for daring to use these villains in the way it did, pushing them to the forefront even if only for a while. One honourable mention for Arkham City I wanted to mention is its DLC stories. Harley Quinn's Revenge and the Catwoman segments of the main story are both great. They build out the world and let us play as other members of the Batman universe, which is great. And although I think most people are in agreement that these sections are pretty good, they often get swept under the carpet in discussions about the game, due to the rest of the game genuinely being like the best of the best. Arkham Origins is another interesting case, because in my opinion this whole game is disgustingly underrated. I've been a certified Arkham Origins fanboy since the game came out, and I'm a part of the few people who really liked this game when it came out and played it when it did come out and went, yeah, this game is cool as hell. So if I was being broad, I'd say the whole game is underrated, because it is. But we're being a bit more specific here, so I've picked its technical No, I'm kidding. While recording for the Arkham Origins retrospective, it's crashed 7 times and I've just entered the GCPD. I'm playing it on an Xbox Series X, and it genuinely kills it every time I open the door. Anyway, I've actually picked the game's exclusive gadgets. Now I know what you're saying, this game has the worst gadget of all time, the concussion detonator, which aside from two really specific uses, is genuinely useless. But aside from that, the variety of exclusive gadgets and the versatility of them in this game is great. Aside from the Batarang, Backclaws, Explosive Gel and Cryptographic Sequencer, we actually get a great set of a few gadgets, and although some are reskinned or take the form of other gadgets in later entries into the series, they're still great. The new big gadget in this game is the Remote Claw, one of the most amazing and versatile, slightly overpowered weapons in the series. Especially when it's fully upgraded, because it acts more as a linear version of the line launcher in movement, in that you can only put the line between two selected points, usually gargoyles or specific anchors. But in Predator stealth sections, it greatly outperforms the line launcher. You can string people up from gargoyles from anywhere as long as they're in your line of sight, giving you free inverted takedowns which might be overpowered, but the reactions from the thugs when their friend just gets yanked 20 feet in the air from out of nowhere is worth it every single time. The claw can also be used to attach enemies together, knocking them over and making them fall over. It can also be used to attach things like fire hydrants and gas canisters to enemies to create smoke screens or even instant takedowns. It's a great gadget overall, and it kind of makes sense lore-wise that Batman would take the movement side of this gadget and use it in his own arsenal and adapt it to the line launcher, but cut the stealth side of it as he got more experienced. Then obviously we've got the infamous shock gloves. These are taken from the Electrocutioner's body after Joker kills him, and serve as a great way to make the game a complete cakewalk. The shock gloves are probably the most contentious gadget in Batman's moveset across all of the series, maybe aside from the Batmobile. They can be activated after enough hits have been landed, and after a few upgrades can bypass literally everything in combat. Stun stick enemies can now be punched head on, shield wielding enemies may as well not have the shields, and the armoured enemies are folded easily. These gloves are so badass, but I understand why people hate them. For the sake of this video though, they are absolutely great. They're unique, fun, and make you go, hell yeah, every time it's time to turn them on. They're honestly great, and a part of this game which gets overlooked a lot. The shock gloves can also be used to power generators around Gotham, to get into new locations, grab data packs, or even open doors that are otherwise untouchable. They're a fun one-off addition, but the elemental gadgets don't end here in Arkham Origins, because in the now unobtainable DLC Cold Heart, which will be getting a video made on it by the way, Batman gets his hands on the Extreme Environment suit, which, to combat Mr. Freeze, is heated to perfection like a fine steak. It helps Batman through the icy corridors of Gothcorp after Freeze's rampage through the building. The suit also comes with heated gadgets which are really cool. This whole suit and gadget combo is amazing, and again goes to show Origin's great display of unique and cool one-off gadgets. A lot of them I'm genuinely really glad never showed up again, but it's a small thing, and let's be honest, all of these gadgets are quite gimmicky. But they're all unique and cool, so they get in here. I guess I should also mention the glue grenade, but it's just a reskin freeze blast, so there's not much to discuss there. Arkham Origins has a lot of underrated features. I could have spoken things like the Dark Knight challenges, the character designs, or well, basically anything that isn't the technical performance. Or the hundreds of bugs that litter the game. Or the crashes. But the game itself, very underrated. Batman Arkham Knight is great. Aside from the shoddy story and the weird endings of some characters, it's great. Graphically, a decade later it still holds up and stands alongside most new games that come out today. Gameplay wise it's the best in the series, and although it has a lot of negatives, it has a ton of positives. And that's basically the story of Batman Arkham Knight. A tale of two extremes. It's either the best at something, or the worst at something. But in terms of underrated features, Arkham Knight has one that's always stood out to me, but never gets brought up. And before I say this and you think I'm clinically insane, just let me elaborate. Arkham Knight's most underrated feature is actually its atmosphere. I know that doesn't make any sense. This game seems completely devoid of atmosphere. The city is like a neon hellhole. Let me elaborate. Arkham Asylum is obviously the king of the Arkham atmosphere, but Knight gives it a hell of a crack in certain sections. At points in this game, the atmosphere is genuinely up there with Asylum. Not all the time, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying Arkham Knight is this atmospheric, slow burn thriller that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat at all times. But at certain points in this game, when you get into the more tighter, detailed locations, the atmosphere is amazing. Locations like Dr. Langstrom's lab absolutely nail the Arkham atmosphere. It's dark, grimy, violent, and unsettling to the nth degree. It's beautiful in the most horrifying way. Rocksteady especially hit this on the head with the Season of Infamy DLC. The Thomas Elliot Memorial Hospital in Shadow War and Iron Heights in Beneath the Surface are both so quintessentially Arkham Asylum. They feel like they've been upscaled from Asylum's engine and brought into Night. The noise, the graphics, the over-the-top violence on display, it's so Asylum and it's great. A lot of the time, Arkham Knight sometimes felt like it lost that edge that made the other games, specifically Asylum and City, so memorable. But at points, in flashes, Knight definitely remembered its roots, and there's plenty of locations which have spring things to the atmosphere. But the three I've mentioned stick out to me every time I play them. Arkham Knight gets a ton of stick for its shortcomings, but anyone who knows me and knows this channel will know that I will defend Arkham Knight until I die for the things it did right. And although not everything in this game nailed that atmosphere, the bits that did, really did. I absolutely love it. And again, I know this is a pretty rogue shout, Night and atmosphere should never be in the same sentence, but for certain points, and there are more than the 3 sections I've mentioned, it hits the nail on the head every single time it does. Honourable mentions for Arkham Knight are few and far between, but I want to give a special shout out, and again, I know this is a pretty rogue shout, to the Batmobile. Because, love or hate its inclusion in the game, it's the only Arkham game which gives us access to the iconic car, and it deserves some props for that. And that concludes the most underrated features in each Arkham game. Keep in mind these are just my opinions and are not definitive, because a lot of the beauty of the Arkham franchise is that you can basically have any opinion on anything in this game, and basically be right. You can never really be wrong about these games. Each game is great and has plenty of features which don't get spoken about enough, and I'm 100% sure I've missed some. So it was good to just cover a few. Comment down below what you think each game's most underrated feature is, and I'll pin the best ones. Like, subscribe for more Arkham content. Again, we're on the road to 1,000 subs, so if everyone watching this subscribes, we might actually get there sooner rather than later. Thank you for watching, thank you for the support, I hope you enjoyed, goodbye.